What's going on, guys? So, in front of me is my drum set, and I know I don't really make any videos on it. I've posted a few pictures on Instagram. I think that's the only place I've posted them, but I know there's a lot of folks out there that ask questions if I'm a drummer. So, yes, I am a drummer. I've been playing drums for about 25 years. I consider myself to be probably very average in terms of typical drummers. I'm not an expert by any sense. I'm not, someone who started from a, band marching drum perspective. So there's still some dynamics and things that I could absolutely improve upon, but I'm a reasonably proficient drummer is probably the best way of saying it. Just really wanted to quickly go over my kit because I guess I have drummers that watch my channel, and a lot of folks ask me when I post a little picture, a little bit of a backstory. So let's talk about that. All right, so the kit in front of you is a DW Performance Series. It's about 3.5, 4 years old. I replaced a Tama Star Classic Maple kit that I had, and really didn't replace it, but I had swapped that kit out for a Hart electric drum kit that a buddy of mine had. And so he has the Tama Star Classic. I had his electric kit. I just don't play well on an electric kit. Way too much rebound, too much bounce. It's not, for me, a good way to stay proficient because it doesn't feel as realistic as a real drum kit, of course. I usually use these quieted cymbals. These are pretty cheap, actually. I got these on Amazon, so not anywhere nearly as expensive as the Zildjian branded versions of them. I have a bag over there that has all my A custom cymbals in it because that's what I typically use when I'm playing with real cymbals. This specific kit is essentially my home studio kit, so I can practice and I can stay proficient and I can do what I need to do to ensure that I'm playing the type of music that I play. But yeah, this is my setup. It's a 6-piece setup. I have a 10, 12, 14, 16-inch floor tom. I have a 22 by 20-inch bass drum. The snare drum is a 14 by 5.5-inch PDP hand-hammered snare drum that I've had forever, probably like 15 years. On the floor is my DW snare drum that actually was built or spec'd in with the kit when I got it. I added the floor tom and I added the 10-inch tom. This kit came as a 4-piece set, basically a 12, a 14, 22-inch bass, and the snare drum. So I've added quite a bit to it. A lot of folks ask why I don't use a rack. I know if you're in the drumming world or not in the drumming world, you probably see a lot of folks on stage that have a big giant rack. They'll go around their drums. I don't prefer racks because I think they're very difficult to readjust or move whenever it's time to move your drums or stop playing. Just the way everything kind of integrates onto the rack. They're great for space saving, so you don't have a bunch of large cymbal stand legs everywhere, but they're a pain in the butt when it comes time to break your kit down and get the whole thing at least removed. And that's just me. There's some drummers out there, I'm sure, that absolutely love using racks, and the space savings and what they gain back in terms of that is beneficial to them. But for me, I love the ability just to grab a stand and move it closer, space things out a little further. I know some drummers play with their toms completely flat. I play with mine at just a slight angle, so they're relatively flat. For me, playing like this makes more sense because it's a little bit better with my motion and how I like to move around the drum set whenever I'm playing. And again, also the fact that the stands give me the ability to position things at more of an angle versus in line with a rack. So I've had racks before. I had a Gibraltar rack, I've had a Yamaha rack and a Pearl rack, and as much as I try to make them work for me, they just don't really work for me. I got a Zoom digital mixer back there that everything feeds into with some headphones, and then I can plug in like a phone to it or something so I can practice with music. I use this Soundpeer dampening pad on top whenever I'm playing, and it could be too loud, but typically it's not really loud, so I can take everything off and I can play pretty quietly if I try hard enough. Cymbal wise, I have a 16 and an 18-inch Zildjian A custom. I have a 12, a 10, and an 8-inch Zildjian A custom splash. I use the NewBeat Zildjian A custom hi-hats. I have an A custom ride. It's a ping ride or a sweet ping ride, whatever they call that. And I have 2 Wuhan China crashes, which really sound cool. A buddy of mine recently told me it sounds like Sprite, the drink, because it gives you this fresh, I don't know, like you're opening up a can of Sprite, that kind of thing. But it's a really cool sounding cymbal. It adds a lot to whenever you're playing. But yeah, this is essentially my setup. I have two more snare drums. I have one actually behind me. So I have this snare drum from Orange County Drum and Percussion, which I got a while back. Had die-cast hoops on it. That was actually one of the big reasons why I got this one, and I triggered it. So this one actually has a heart head, and I made this trigger because when I had my electric drums, I used this as the primary snare drum, which was really cool. So basically installed a port here on the side, or a plug, 1/4-inch plug on the side, so I could mix it in. It's only single zone, which was definitely a bummer, which means I wouldn't get a sound off of the rim, just basically a sound off of the drum head. But yeah, this thing is super cool. I'll probably reconfigure it back as a snare drum again. I just need to add the snares to it, put the new head on the bottom, put the head on top, and remove the trigger from it. But it's a really nice drum, and it sounds really good. I typically prefer a wood snare drum over a steel snare drum. Steel is going to be more cutting, a little bit louder. It's going to have a higher frequency range whenever you hit it, and whenever you have it tuned up really high. Wood is going to be a little bit warmer, a little poppier for me. And I also have still a bunch of remnants for my Tama Star Classic kit, including a popcorn snare. It's a 10-inch diameter that's 8 inches deep, and that thing sounds, I mean, it just sounds incredibly high-pitched, super sharp, super poppy, and it's a great accent snare drum. And I usually keep it mounted right there where I have that roll-in pad. And believe it or not, the roll-in pad I don't have any real use for because I got rid of the module that it connected to. I just use it as a table right now. So like when I'm playing, I put my smartphone on it, I put my keys or whatever, and it just works really well for that, to be honest with you. But that's traditionally where I'd put my popcorn snare. So I'd have a side snare so I could essentially play other types of music that have that more poppy kind of sound to them. I would play right now, but my family's actually asleep. It's really early on a Saturday morning, and I got up and was kind of restless and figured I'd do a little video on this because I know there's a lot of folks, a lot of musicians who probably play different things. So in addition to drums, I dabble in piano. I have a Yamaha production station over there. It's actually a super old, the thing's like 15 years old. It's called the Mo 6. And yeah, that thing is absolutely cool. I don't play as well as I would like to play, but I'm reasonably proficient on keyboard and piano and things like that. I have a little amplifier in here. At one point, I had kind of this whole studio setup where I had bass head, I had bass amps, I had guitar amps and everything. Just because if you are a musician, you tend to know other musicians. And when you know other musicians, there's always a chance that you're going to jam out. And whenever you have them over, you want to be able to just get straight to jamming out as opposed to having to unload and reload equipment and get everything wired up. So a lot of folks who are serious about music will have their own little kind of studio if they have a spare bedroom, so they can essentially just have people over and just start playing. You can have your guitar amps, your bass amps, maybe even a recording station, something that allows you to record through a computer, through a digital audio interface, or a small mixer like this that's fed from a larger mixer so everyone can plug into it. But this Zoom R16 is what I have, and if I wanted to, I could plug a bass guitar, a regular guitar, or even another smaller amp into this that could feed vocals and other instruments as well. But yeah, this is my setup. I don't record with these cymbals on, and I don't record with these muffling pads on. You want to take all that stuff off, otherwise it's going to sound like trash. Pedals and hardware. So I am still a huge Tama fan. I had a Tama Star Classic, like I said, and whenever I switched to that, I switched from pretty much all Pearl hardware to Tama hardware. So I run the Iron Cobra, a double bass drum pedal, and I have a single bass drum pedal, and I still have a Yamaha single bass drum pedal, but then I have the Iron Cobra hi-hat clutch drive dual leg, so instead of 3 legs it's 2, so you can kind of rotate them and get your double bass pedal next to it. But yeah, that's my setup here, and that's also Iron Cobra. Trying to think what else I have from an equipment perspective. If you're wondering what type of heads I run, on here I actually kept the DW heads on. I don't play incredibly aggressively. I like to play kind of light so I get better dynamics, better stick control, and I use Vader 7A sticks, which are really, really light, really narrow sticks. Typically you would see these for kind of your adult contemporary jazz fusion type music, but you can really use any type of stick for any type of music because you really don't need to bang on the drum that hard if you're mic'd up. Your microphones can be always, turned up and turned down. So as opposed to beating up your joints and wearing yourself out, it's kind of like golf, I guess. Once you have the best technique, you don't need to swing as hard. It's how you swing. That's the same way with sticks. But yeah, when you look at just the overall setup here, I typically would switch to a Remo pinstripe head, but the DW heads that came on here are really nice. They actually sound fantastic, and they've been really durable. Haven't dented a single head. They sound great. Drum heads are kind of one of those things. If you have a good sounding drum head, stick with it until it wears out. I do have a whole box full of Remo pinstripes somewhere over here. They're right over there. For whenever these do wear out, I'll go ahead and swap them all out with pinstripes. But, aside from that, and then I have an Evans head on here, and on my snare down there, I also have a Remo head. But yeah, this is essentially my setup. I'm trying to think what else. All double braced, heavy duty hardware. A lot of people don't realize when you get into drums, the drums themselves, yes, they're expensive, but they can easily be dwarfed by your hardware and cymbals. Hardware and cymbals can get extremely expensive. If you get super lightweight stuff or even cheaper double braced stuff, double brace simply means you have the two bracing on the legs. It's not that expensive. You could probably get all the stands and everything you need for $500. If you are going for high-end stuff that will last, stuff that you can gig with, you can take out on the road with you, it's going to get really expensive. As an example, most of these stands probably cost between $130 to $150 each. Even some attachments are like $60, $70. Clamps are like $30, $40. It can add up really quickly. Cymbals can get really expensive too. A custom cymbal set that I have for my drum set came as a kit, except for the splashes. I bought all the splashes separately, but the kit was like $1,000 or like $1,100 at the time, and then the splashes were all probably $150 to $170. Whereas Wuhan, these things are like $60 to $100, I think, when I bought them, and I got two or three of these. I think three of these. Microphones, all this stuff can add up pretty quickly. And not bragging about it, this certainly isn't the highest end DW kit you can buy. DW makes a custom collector series that's way above the price range of this one. This is kind of their mid-level. They have a design series that's beneath this, then the performance series, and then the custom series, or the collector series. And the collector series are noted by the larger lugs. These are called turret-style lugs. The design series lugs are much smaller than these. And these are kind of the mid-size, and then the larger turret-style lugs are what you would typically see on, your super high-end recording drum kits that you see, recording artists use or bands use out that perform and gig all the time, professional bands. This specific drum kit is, again, kind of their mid-range kit. And if you're not familiar with DW is Drum Workshop, which is generally considered to be one of the better brands, kind of like some of your higher-end Tama kits or your higher-end Pearl kits. Or several other brands, whether it's Mapex or Yamaha makes a bunch of really, really nice kits. Sonar, as well as brands like Premier, and there's just a ton of brands out there. But yeah, this is my setup. I probably would have played a little bit here had the family not still been asleep. But it's pretty cool, and these pads do a reasonable job, but it can still get kind of loud if you're not careful. I have the snares turned off right now, and the cymbals have a really good sound to them for being practice cymbals. They're a lot quieter than your typical cymbal, probably 50% quieter, probably half the volume of a traditional cymbal. But they work really well if you're trying to play in an environment where you don't want to make too much noise, or you got a family who you don't want to deafen. Anyways, guys, just wanted to make this quick video about the drum set because I do know that there are some folks that watch the channel that are musicians, folks that like to play and jam, and for me, this is a big part of my life. You guys, my YouTube channel, all that is super important to me, but this is also one of my passions as well. Anyways, guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again real soon.